who were the righteous people, the good people before them. They said, these are good people. And they would admonish their children. You see that? That was so-and-so. That's so-and-so. You see him, Shaykh so-and-so? He was a good man. You need to be good too. So when they grew up and they had kids, they said, you see that? That's so-and-so. You have to be good like he was good. And this went on until somebody was saying, oh, if you need anything, you pray to so-and-so, and that's how you're going to get it. Whoops. Whoops. And they began to worship the statues. In Islam, we know there weren't any statue worshippers until that happened. And this brings the wrath of Allah, the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The worst kind of condition you can be in is to make this kind of shirk. Allah hates it. He's not going to forgive it. So that's very important for us to know, not to play with that. Now I want to come back to what somebody asked me a little earlier about, or mentioned it, I think, about using tasbih. Tasbih. You know the beads on the string? Huh? How many of you think it's halal? How many of you think it's haram? Ooh, if we take a vote, you lose. But we're not going to do that. I'm probably going to wind up being pretty close to the question mark people when I get done explaining this. Okay? I'm going to wind up being close to the question mark people. But I'm going to start by mentioning the haram side. From the bidah point of view. Because there is a hadith. And the hadith talks about one of the great scholars of Islam in his last years before he died. That some young shababs had seen something taking place in the masjid, but they didn't want to say anything. This is back when people had good manners. Not like we are today when everybody just shoots off their mouth. These shabab went over to the scholar, and I forgot the name, so I'm sorry about that, but it's a good hadith. And they asked him, by the way, they waited outside his house. They didn't ask anything from him. They didn't knock. No, they waited and waited and waited. When he finally came out, he said, why didn't you just knock? No, see the respect for the knowledge. They waited. They said, well, we saw something and we wanted to ask. So again, they're showing politeness to everybody because they're not going to just walk in and do anything. So he went over to see for himself what's going on. And they found somebody who was a newer person in Islam, telling the other people what to do. And they had all gathered up little piles of stones. And he would say to them, now everybody take one. I think they each one had 100, but I don't remember the number. But they had these piles of stones. He said, now everybody take one and move it to another pile and say Bismillah or say Subhanallah or say something. So they would do that. And when it was all gone, then he said, take that and move it back and say something else. And this one, the Sahabi went over to them and commented to them, why don't you count your sins? And then he mentioned what the Prophet ﷺ said about people who would, before, after a period of time, I don't remember the Arabic on it, but it means that these people would innovate. And Islam would just be over their heads. Another one mentions about Islam going through them like an arrow goes through the game. So, but I'm not going to put this all together and say that's all on one thing. The point though is that anybody that innovates, even in dhikr of Allah, could be getting away from the point of the dhikr to start with. Because if you make a contest out of it, some people do that. They say, well, if you say 100,000 times this, 1,000 times that, and 2,000 times that, and you're saying, I'm busy, I can't do that. Somebody else can do that, and you can't. So then it becomes like what? What does that mean? Now I'm going to go to the other side. Let's go to the other side and be fair. At the time of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there were some of those who didn't have jobs and they had no place to go. They were miskeen, but they were new Muslims. They used to sit in the place right there in the Medina Masjid Masjid Medina al-Munawwara. Munawwara meaning two lights. The place where they sit was called the Sufa. Our word sofa comes from this word, Sufa. They sat on the Sufa. And these people used to make dhikr, a lot of dhikr. And the Prophet ﷺ passed by them, and he stopped. And he said, "What are you doing?" They said, "Wallahi, we're just making dhikr to Allah." And then he said something like, "I know that, but I was ordered by Jibril to ask you. And I've been commanded to sit with the people who do this." So making dhikr is absolutely a part of Islam. And also it's in the Quran in Surah Ar-Ra'd 13:28, and it mentions it real clear. The thing about it is, in the tafsir of this particular one sitting right beside me, I think, this is not mine, but I'll look it up real quick, just to be sure. Chapter 13, verse 28, that has a footnote right beside it. If it's like the one I got at home, Dar es Salaam published this. It tells you the hadith about that, how to make this kind of thing. No, this doesn't give you that. Doesn't give you the breakdown of it. I thought it would. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, there it is. The meaning of it is that in the remembrance of Allah, hearts find rest. Dhikr of Allah, your heart softens and you get... It's the best kind of dawah you can make to non-Muslims is just talk about Allah. It's great. But it tells you what is the superiority of the dhikr of Allah, the remembering of Allah. And this is a hadith narrated in Sahih Bukhari, by the way, on the authority of Abu Musa, that the Prophet ﷺ said the example of the one who remembers and glorifies his Lord in comparison to the one who does not remember him is that of the living creature compared to a dead one. So it's very important that we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the dhikr of Allah. La tansa dhikr Allah. Don't forget to remember Allah. It's kind of, I like the way that, don't forget to remember. La tansa dhikr Allah. It also says on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, this is in Sahih Bukhari also, Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi 100 times a day, 100 times a day, can you say that? Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. This is not bidah, this is Sahih Bukhari. 100 times a day, he's going to get the same reward. He'll be forgiven for all of his sins, even if they were as much as the foam of the ocean. Whoa, I know I got some sins, but I don't think it's that much. But just in case, I'll say it today and tomorrow. And the next day. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah al-Azim. That's another one. This one, next one is also Sahih Bukhari. It tells us that whoever says La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahu mulku wa lahu hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir 100 times will get the same reward as if they freed 10 slaves. And as if they did 100 good deeds, take 100 bad deeds off of their record and protect them from shaitan all day long. There's another one that says, whoever says, similar to this one, but it adds, it's not in here. La ilaha illallahu wahdahu la sharika lahu lahu mulku wa lahu hamd yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. 10 times. Just 10 times. He gets 10 good deeds, take away 10 bad deeds, plus he gets protected from shaitan all day. These are in Sahih Bukhari. Most of them, I think, in volume 8. Yeah, they're all in volume 8 in the English translation. By the way, it means La ilaha illallah wa la sharika lahu lahu mulku wa lahu hamdu yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. It means nobody has the right to be worshipped but Allah. He has no partner. To Him belongs the mulk, the kingdom of the universe. And for Him is all praise, and He has the power to do, and it's mistranslation. It says He can do anything. It's wrong. Allahu ala kulli shay'in qadir means Allah has the power to do what He wills. Then you might say, well, what's the difference? Because if you say anything, then can Allah die? No, because that contradicts Him being Al-Hayy. Right? Can Allah cheat? Be unfair?